Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Drop Balls and Big Calls. Today's guest is someone who's lived through more than most of us could imagine. Paul Rourke is a musician, a father, and a man who's faced down serious trauma. From family struggles growing up to not one, but two cardiac arrests in the space of a week. In this chat, Paul opens up about music, mental health, fatherhood, charity work, and what it's like to wake up one day and realize that life's never going to be quite the same again. It's raw, it's real, and as always, it's about those moments that test us, shape us, and show us who we really are. Let's get into it. Welcome to Drop Balls and Big Calls, my friends. How are you feeling about today?
I don't get nervous, but I don't know. I guess nervous could be the way I'm describing myself. But yeah, let's just have a chat and see what holes we can go down.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, I'm actually still getting nervous even doing these interviews, so we can be in it together, my friend.
How many you've done so far?
This will be number 4, I think. So yeah, pretty early days still, but I feel like I'm improving each time, which is good.
Like we know, with our instruments, it takes practice.
That's exactly right. Well, obviously we go back a few years, you and I, Paul. I think I remember distinctly playing a couple of cover gigs with yourself, Relay for Life, I think it was. What do you remember of those times?
They were hectic because, so around that time we were, involving ourselves in the Relay for Life stuff, both myself and Faye, my wife, and we just had like a lot on our plate around that time. There was the band thing, there was organising Relay for Life, there was, theatre shows outside of that, while still trying to maintain a house and, raise 2 kids and just be generally available to friends and family. So, yeah, that's probably my biggest memory from that time. But yeah, the couple of gigs we did together were really really cool, and because everyone was on board as a on a volunteer basis. It was really heartening to see you guys stand up and give us a hand with those, and put out some quality music.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I loved it. I'm still I still have very fond memories of those. I think the second one I did with you, I distinctly remember we sort of played in the evening that second time around, and I had to do a mad dash from your stage to the SB afterwards. But
'Cause you were
those are
playing?
great times. Yeah, we were playing at the SB for, I can't even remember what the event was. I think it was Creep Show or something, if I remember right,
Okay.
or something along those lines. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they were epic times. I didn't realize you were actually involved in organising the Relay for Life as well.
Yep.
Crazy.
As I said, we had a full roster back then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you did it personally, mate. That's a lot of plates to juggle. But what sort of made you dive into the charity side? Was there like a personal cause behind that?
Oh, look, it's hard not to, as the old saying goes, throw a stone and not hit someone who's been touched by cancer. It was an event that we'd been involved in with Wyndham, which was a much larger event than the one we put on. And then for some reason, it was decided that we needed to do like a similar event because our municipality was big enough to sustain a couple of events. So we got on board with the Point Cook Committee and obviously jumped in with both feet. And yeah, it was 5 years of that event, which was really good for the size of it. It would have been nice to continue it, but as I guess with it, you find out, especially with volunteering, there's always the certain core group of people who will do all the work. And, all these people will say, "Yep, we'll come and help. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll do this." And then, unfortunately, those people don't show up when the time is right or needed. And it became sort of the same committee for those 5 years. Excuse me. And it's especially with a young family, it starts to take a drain on your own time, sort of. And we decided to step back from it. But we had obviously our family had been touched by cancer. My grandfather passed away with cancer, and at the time, both of Faye's grandmothers had cancer. One which took her dad's mum, and the other which she got, I think it was tongue cancer, which is like a really odd one you don't hear of a lot. Which was cut out and it was taken, and she had the treatment, and she lived to the ripe old age of 82. Fail, correct me on that one, but she made it to her 80s, and was in remission for all those years. So although she'd she hadn't been taken by cancer, she was touched by cancer. So, we had a bit of a background that has sort of appealed to us.
Geez, that's incredible. I've never heard of tongue cancer before.
Yeah, it's an odd one. As like we like during our time with Relay for Life, we learned of there's a whole bunch of these like forgotten cancers. Like one of my heroes, Mr. Peter Chris back here, he had breast cancer, which a lot of people don't know. So it's not, although it is more prevalent in women, it is something that guys can get as well. So all that money was going to research, and as far as we're concerned, it was put to good use.
Yeah, absolutely. You raised some substantial amounts too, mate. So you should be really proud of your,
We
your
did.
efforts over those years.
Well, yeah, we are very much so.
Yeah, fantastic. You mentioned the theatre part as well,
Hmm.
the bands. Music's meant a lot to you throughout your life,
Oh
from what
boy,
I've
yeah.
been able to see.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Where
been
did it
a
all start? When did it first, when did you first sort of know that music was your thing?
well. I come from my immediate family growing up. I was never made aware that music was a part of our family. So I kind of stood out. Like I'd heard my uncle had dabbled in drums much later in life. I mean, I learnt this much later in life. My other uncle, his brother, was a fairly skilled pianist, and then I learned later in life again that my grandmother and my grandfather used to sing at local dances. But when I was growing up, none of this was really talked about. As far as music being a part of my life, it wasn't something that was encouraged either. So I forged ahead anyway. Um, I obviously we all start listening to music from a young age, and I probably picked up the sticks around 13. Completely self-taught, and I mean, I had lessons at school. I think they were sort of a token thing, because the teacher we had wasn't really sitting us down doing rudiments and teaching us how to read music. He'd kind of come in and tell us about the band he played with on the weekend, and he'd be showing us all this stuff, and then suddenly he said, "Oh yeah, well, if you get on the kit and play this," and it wasn't formalized, so I didn't really see it as a lesson. So again, as I said, I forged on. I mean, my very first memories was basically growing up. Me and my brother had bunk beds, and I would set up pillows on the bottom bunk, tuck pillows up into the top bunk for cymbals, and just whack away at the pillows. I think my mum hated it because the pillowcases tended to not last long under the speed of sticks. But yeah, eventually they caved, and they saw this wasn't just a passing fad. So I was working a part-time job at a butcher, and this guy was selling his drum kit for $150, and I was like, sweet. It's probably the most expensive thing I'd seen all my life as far as drum kit's concerned. That's changed dramatically over the years. But um, it was just, drums just was the instrument that spoke to me. I did attempt trombone at high school. Um, but because of my brother's handicap, he wasn't. He was very scared of loud noises, so trying to play any woodwind brass instrument which made noise, he was not very keen on. So but then I say drums, which he really gravitated to with me. So it was kind of odd how that worked, but yeah. So I just forged ahead. I was told that I actually had no rhythm by a drum teacher, which is why I didn't take drum lessons in year 7, because I was interested back then, and the guys go, "No, you got no rhythm, you got no coordination." Well, isn't this what lessons are for? Aren't you supposed to teach me this shit?
Mate, it's amazing how, and it's great that you forged on too,
Mm.
because there's a lot of teachers out there that appreciate how much that can damage someone's confidence
Mhm.
and what they're wanting to pursue in life. Like, that's a dream crushing statement. So for you to continue with that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I was. It's funny. All through my adult life, I never thought of myself as a strong sort of character. Like I had sort of I had like a moral sort of bar that I set for myself, but I never felt that I was militant, or that had that kind of backbone to follow up my convictions. But when I look back, being told that I couldn't play drums was a catalyst for me to play drums and, get fairly good at it. So I think that's what, yeah, one of my things that I've learnt over the years is my I'm not sure of the word, self-motivation, which I thought I lacked. I actually have it in spades, but don't recognize it as, a strong character trait in me, which, yeah, looking back is like, how could I not? But, like, even, like, with me writing music now, like, I'm I'm playing drums, I'm playing guitar, I'm playing bass, I'm singing, I'm doing all the backing vocals on everything that I do, purely because, I had one friend actually say, because he was helping me out earlier with my earlier recordings, and I've presented him some stuff, and he's gone, "Why are you getting me to play this? A little bit of polish, and this is a song." And I'm going, "But I'm not a guitarist." He said, "I beg to differ." And, the results kind of have spoken for themselves over the last couple of years, definitely. But just that being told that you can't, and I guess also not my parents were supportive in a way. I mean, they bought me the drum kit, but didn't really see what it meant to me as a person, until much later in life. So there wasn't a lot of encouragement to, pursue it, or, maybe I should be looking at other things like homework. But, we all lapse every now and then. Um, but yeah, I guess, yeah, music sort of started for me around 13, or the playing of music. Mm, I'd always have a keen ear for listening to music. Um, I was I was a musical sponge, like, through my teens, through my 20s, even learning, um, useless music trivia facts that I'd throw at people. Sometimes they'd be impressed, a lot of times they weren't, but it was a skill.
I love it. Well, what was some of your sort of earlier childhood memories? There's a couple of things that have already stuck out throughout what you're describing in terms of, you first picking up your instrument. You mentioned your parents were only supportive to some extent, and then obviously your one of your music teachers sort of kicking you in the guts. What's outside of that? What's some of your earliest memories throughout your childhood? What was Paul's house like?
Well, in primary school, Paul's house was probably like most, middle income houses in the 80s. I vividly remember, weekends where, my parents had friends over, and there was this thick layer of smoke in the house, because everyone was allowed to smoke in the house at that stage. And it didn't
The
matter
old
that
yellow walls.
yeah, man. And it didn't matter who was there, the kids' friends. It was just the done thing. And I look back at it now and just go, Jesus, us Gen Xers, how the hell did we get through? But that's why we were told to go and play outside more. But yeah, growing up, it was a little tough. But again, we were tough kids back then, and because my upbringing was sort of through the armed forces, so my dad was in the Australian Air Force, and we moved around a little bit, not as much as a lot of my sort of peers, but we were lucky to finally settle in an area, which is here in Melbourne's West, um, from 1982, and I was lucky enough to basically just stay put from that time onwards. So I was able to have a fairly stable life. But having said that, there is I do remember that, yeah, I didn't have my dad around a lot for a lot of the time, for various reasons. Although he was there, he wasn't present. And my mum was kind of the main caregiver, and for me, because my brother, as I mentioned, has an intellectual handicap, he took a lot of time from my mum. So although we were a sort of a nuclear family, 2 parents, 2 kids. A lot of time I felt like an only child. And so, yeah, growing up for me was kind of solitary, and I used to go and make my own fun. I'd be riding my bike. We used to live by the Werribee River, and, find a decent looking stick and just pretend I was in Vietnam, walking up and down the banks of the river all the time. Probably not PC now, but, just getting outside and making my own fun, because obviously we didn't have, Game Boys, we didn't have consoles. We had an Atari, but we couldn't afford one. So it was just a do-it-yourself kind of attitude, which now I think about it was pretty much how I spent, it sort of comes back to that drum thing. No one's supporting me there, so I bugger it, I'll just do it myself. So, it's, I don't regret a lot of my upbringing. There's probably one or two things that I do. A closer relationship with my father would have been nice, but, in the ensuing years, we've managed to, we'll be father and son, but it won't be like, a very close relationship. But, I really don't think I've got a lot to complain about, but then some may say I do. It's odd because, you feel that there's something that you've missed, especially having a parental relationship that you see people outside of your family have, and you sort of pine for that within your own relationship with your parents, whether it be your mother or your father. But they were there, you know. Unlike a lot of my friends, a lot of my friends, their parents were divorced, and some had parents pass away. So I at least had them here. Maybe not as present as I would like, but I at least had them, and I still have them. So
It must have created a sense of resentment at times, though.
yeah, it came back to bite me in a large way as an adult because I was very, I guess, I wouldn't say independent, but I learned to rely on me. So when like Faye and I have been together forever, as you know. We were high school sweethearts, if you want to use that term. We don't tend to, but and so when we first moved in together, I was still unaware of housework, doing things, cooking meals and doing so. I went into I went into my first living relationship away from home, knowing jack shit, and learned very quickly that I had to learn because Faye is a strong woman, and she doesn't wait around on no man. And so I I had to adjust to being a pair or a couple, which for the most part in the early stages of a relationship, I kind of got right. Um, Coming from the patterns of behavior that I'd learnt early on, um, I wasn't a great communicator. I hated confrontation. I mean, everyone hates confrontation technically, but yeah, I avoided it at all costs. Like if there was an inkling of there being some kind of disagreement between me and Faye, I'd immediately shut down, and try to be anywhere else other than dealing with this problem. And unfortunately, that sort of carried on for a few years, and it did get to a crisis point, which led us both to couples counselling, which I found very helpful, but I was very against doing because I adopted the stance of, well, if I can't talk to Faye about these problems, how am I going to talk to a complete stranger? And as much as I thought I was contributing through couples therapy, I wasn't contributing enough. And then at the very, very beginning, because the counsellor we saw was actually an ex-Defence Force serving member of the Defence Force, he said to me the very first, he said, "I will break you." And the fucker did.
But how full circle though, right? Like you'd come from this family background in the military, and now you're faced with someone that is there to unpack those things with you and
Yeah.
go through the trenches with you, so to speak. Who's also come from a similar background. Like what a full circle moment for you.
Yeah, you can't write this stuff. But yeah, he did his job and he did it well. Our relationship is the strongest it's been for the whole 35 years we've been together. And which is it just feels like our relationship gets stronger. Like we're empty nesters now. We just moved into a new house 4 months ago, and we're learning what it is to just be us again, which we haven't had since 1999. So when Prince says party like it's 1999, yeah, we went the opposite way. But yeah, no, it was I am forever grateful that Faye brought up the couples therapy thing. She organised it, knowing full well that I was against the idea. but it served its purpose, and I couldn't be, you know, happier. And I think the lessons I learned through that as well, also helped me be on, my own relationship with Faye, but, in opening up to people. As I said, I was never a great communicator. Wouldn't talk about feelings, wouldn't show emotion, didn't show weakness, although inside I felt all those things. And as we all know, they come back to bite us fairly hard. And yeah, look, as I said, I don't resent a lot of things, but I think because of the way I'd sort of grown up and had that sense of individuality, which I think kind of stifled me with them. I'm trying to think of the word. Just with the showing of emotions and being present in moments with people who when they're showing emotion and you know being able to offer words, even though those words might not be solving a problem, which I always thought was what words needed to do. Just the mere fact that you say, I don't have the words, but I understand what you're going through, I found personally meant a lot to people, but also to myself. And it was a hard lesson to learn.
One of the things like I've certainly found incredibly difficult to do in my life is just to be able to flick that switch
Mhm.
of not feeling like you have to fix everything because someone's like, say, Faye, for example, she's talking you through something that she's going through. I can only assume that you'd just be wanting to fix everything.
Mhm.
But I certainly found that switch really hard to turn.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's if you're not used to having to do that, like people use terms like emotionally unavailable, and I think that was me for a long time. Not because that's how I wanted to be, but I just didn't know how to sort of step over that barrier and go, hey, I'm here. And it did lead to its fair share of sort of dark moments for us. Um, that we thankfully have been able to navigate and get to a stronger place. Um, and as I said, it's not just merely my relationship with Faye, but I've been able to talk to my mother in much the same way. Like there was things that I didn't, she never knew about me growing up, which we never spoke about, which she's now aware of. Which one of the first things she said to me was, "I'm so sorry," and I wasn't telling her this for that reason, but it was more a fact that she needed to know why things went the way they did or how I was as a young adult. Because I basically I felt the first chance that I got, I was out of the family home. I just needed to just get out on my own and live with my wife. So it I just needed that clean break from what I'd experienced over the first 20 years of my life, start a new chapter with a significant partner and try to build something from there, which, as I said, we have done. It's been hills and valleys for the last 35 years, but in some respects, I wouldn't change it because, I feel more whole as a person now. But you always think if only I was this way earlier, we might have not have had those issues. But if we hadn't had those issues, or might not have got to this point to actually, it's that whole sliding doors thing, Yeah, you wish
Yeah, well,
things
that's it.
could
You
could
might
have
not
been
have
better.
been in. Yeah, that's it. You might not have been in this relationship as long as you have. It's
Yeah,
probably made you both stronger for it.
yeah, and definitely, we keep saying we're strong together. But we don't all through the years doing theatre, all through the years of doing the volunteer stuff with Relay for Life. A lot of people looked on our relationship as a fairly strong relationship and a fairly strong couple. Little did they know there was probably 80 to 20% work happening behind the scenes, which was 80% Faye, 20% Paul. Um, and but it worked until it didn't. So yeah, again, lesson learned.
That sort of, I guess, Pandora's box that was tightly shut, and you've referenced a couple of times now where it reached a point where it sort of bubbled over for you.
Mm.
How did that? So you got out of home at quite a young age. You were into music then. You were, I believe, performing in pubs and things like that. How did that trauma show up through say, your 20s? especially when you're around, say, mates and in pubs playing music, where obviously you got this drinking culture around you as well.
Boy, you've done your research. Because of the nature of, like, when I said my dad wasn't present, I learned very early that I wasn't going to be a drinker. I made a radical choice just to never touch alcohol because I didn't like what I saw in my home life. And I said if I ever had kids and a wife, I would never put them through what I saw. I would never repeat those behaviors. And performing in pubs there was early on, there was an odd sense of, why are you doing this? You know, being around people who drink makes you uncomfortable. Why are you putting yourself in a position where you're surrounded by, people who, I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're playing covers, weekly in a bar. You're gonna see people punching on, and, that just sort of reinforces why you don't like that sort of behavior that you've seen. Um, but again, it has to come from that strong core that I have that I don't acknowledge, a lot, to go, "All right, okay, they're drinking, that's fine. You're on stage, you're providing entertainment, you're doing what you love. Don't let that stop you from doing what it is that that drives you." And it wasn't until, much later in life that I realized that I'd done that. I think I was just on autopilot in my 20s and possibly even into my 30s. But obviously, situations come up where you are definitely, well, I was definitely uncomfortable in certain settings. We used to play at the Swan. I don't know if you ever filled in for us there, but yeah, we used to do that on a weekly basis, and I saw some stupidity. And during breaks, I would just basically separate myself from the crowd. I would just go and hide, in what was called the band room. It really wasn't, because people could just walk freely into there. But I
Probably the
would,
broom cupboard.
yeah, essentially. But I would just between sets, I just wouldn't engage. Although your people come up to the front of the stage because you're right there. They're asking you for KSAN, and you're just going, no fucking way. And pissing people off. And it's like, well, this is what you love doing. So in some respect, the brain had to go, just shut that out, do what it is that you're doing, what you love to do, and get on with it. Which if you told my 20 years to your old self that, I probably would never get up on stage, because I was putting myself right in the midst of a part of Australian culture that I wasn't comfortable with.
Mm.
Like, even at parties, with friends, I'd go, I'd be the one drinking Pepsi, and they're all going, "Do you want a drink?" And no, I'm fine. I'll sit on this all night. And for the amount of times I've heard, "Oh, I don't trust a person who doesn't drink," and it's, well, too bad. I guess it's all fine until someone drinks himself into a drunken stupor where they're just belligerent and being an asshole, and that's what I wanted to avoid in myself. Like, because I've never been drunk, I don't know. I could be a happy drunk. I could be a angry drunk. I don't know. And for me, I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to find out. I just want to be me as I am, and I want to be in the moment. I'm not looking to escape from something, or, mask something. Not that I'm saying that's why everyone drinks, but I'm not, it's not high on my priority list of things to do in life. And I sort of kind of remained, in my own mind, militant about that, because I never wanted to, again, repeat what I saw when I was a kid. And it's interesting that in around 18 to 20, both my girls started dabbling, and I was so uncomfortable knowing that they were doing that. I wasn't going to stop them, but they certainly knew how I felt about it, and just the level of untrust around people who they associate with, even if it's not their direct friendship group. But if they're at a party and they're there with a bunch of people that they don't know and they're getting drunk, yeah, just prefer they keep their wits about them. Have maybe one drink, as a social thing, and just keep your wits about you, because you just can't trust anyone these days, really.
Mm. No,
But
it's terrifying, particularly with girls, mate. Like I mean,
yeah,
I've got a 2-year-old daughter myself, and
yeah, man.
as much as I'm trying not to fast forward to when she turns that age, it does worry me. But I am like to put some hope out there. Like I am definitely seeing with particularly Gen Z and onwards, there's a lot more, I guess, awareness around what alcohol does to you, but they're a lot more health conscious as well. I don't know if you've seen the same in your girls, but I think everyone goes through a period where they sort of dabble. I sort of like really aligned with what you're saying there around sort of the pub culture and those turning points and seeing how people behave. Like for me, one of my real early turning points with alcohol was I remember when I must have probably only been 7 or 8 years old, but I remember a relative drunkenly chasing me down the stairs at the Hornby Workmen's Club in New Zealand.
Right.
And like to him, it would have been fun and games, but to a 7-year-old, I was like shitting my pants.
It's creepy.
And it's actually stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Just like remembering his laugh as he was chasing me down, and that sort of really changed things for me over the years. Obviously, I've drank from time to time and stuff like that, but I never sort of drink to that excess because it actually makes me feel uncomfortable when I start feeling like I'm not in control.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the turning point for you? Like, is there a particular moment that you remember that caused you to turn that dial?
Unfortunately, I don't think it was any one point. There was a lot that I remember from that period growing up, and it just, I guess it just sort of grew and grew and grew. But unfortunately, when my dad had a couple of drinks, he wasn't a happy person to be around. He became belligerent. He became angry, and he wasn't pleasant to be around. And I guess I've just learned very early that there was two sides to my dad. There was the side where he was, look, my dad will do anything for anybody, and he has done over the years to his detriment. But at times it did feel like his friendship group was more important than the family unit. And so, when he put trust in people from his friendship group, there's a couple of times that they really fucked him over. And yeah, it obviously doesn't help that a lot of time that he was, under the influence of alcohol, and just the anger. But I think what I'm trying to say is my dad, at his core, is a genuine person and is a very, very giving person. But the other person is like a Jekyll or Hyde. It's Hyde. I think it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Mr. Hyde is who I remember, unfortunately, most growing up. And just over the years, it just became clear to me that is not how I want to live my life. Yeah, so it wasn't any one incident. It was just, unfortunately, a constant of incidences that really fueled that in me.
I hope you don't mind me asking, mate. You mentioned you'd had love it. You mentioned you had some honest conversations with your mum about your childhood. Like, have you been able to have those similar conversations with your dad?
No. My problem there is a lot of what I experienced is it's, how do I put this? There was a fair amount of forgetfulness about how one acted the night before, and there's a lot of things that he said to me which I made my mother aware of as mostly as a teenager, that hurt, and he doesn't remember it. He wouldn't remember it. And for me, I've had this conversation with Faye, and I've a couple of times, and I don't feel I can have that conversation. Strangely, I don't think I'm ready, because for me, I feel like it would be just coming out of the blue and saying, "Hey, this is what you did to me." And like, it was never any physical violence or anything like that. A lot of it was just mental, emotional, which hurts just as much. But for me to bring it up years later now and go, "I'm just trying to make you aware," in itself, I don't think would be taken too well. I have a relationship with him now. As I said, it's not close, but it is a relationship. And do I maintain the relationship, or do I potentially obliterate it by saying, "Hey, this was not cool. This is what I experienced as a kid"? I think you need to know. A therapist may say you have to do it. I just don't know that, as I said, to broach it now that we have a relationship is, I feel it would be tough. It was a tough conversation to have with my mother, because I just saw the expression on her face, and she was like, she wanted to go home and kill him. But yeah, I just think, it's not that it's still too raw. I think it's just, is it, that's people talk about the statute of limitations sort of thing. Is it worth bringing up? People watching this probably think you're an idiot. Do it and get to the bare bones of it. But for me, it just feels like, you know what, I've dealt I've dealt with it myself. Do I necessarily need to burden him with it if he doesn't remember it? It might be a silly way of looking at it, but that's sort of the way that my head sees it.
I don't think anyone would be calling you an idiot, mate. Like, everyone deals with things in a very different way, and I think anyone going through a similar experience would probably be having the same dialogue with themselves. Everyone's experiences is, they're unique to themselves. No one's
Exactly.
going to know exactly what it looked like for you. So, I don't think anyone would be saying anything like that. You've navigated through a lot of those traumas with faith through couples therapy over the years.
Mhm.
What did those things teach you about yourself or about your relationships?
I think it taught me, like, I always, like, early on, I always felt that I was someone who didn't have a backbone because as I think I mentioned at the start, I didn't feel that I had the conviction to back up myself. Like, I would always avoid arguments or discussions. I was, for some reason, felt that my opinion wasn't so as strong as somebody else's, so why put it forward? And to an extent, I suffered from imposter syndrome, but I still do as well. In that, yes, I play guitar, yes, I play drums, yes, I sing kind of well, apparently. But I'm in the back of my mind, it's like, oh, someone's going to find out that I'm not really that good, or I'm not as good as I think I am. And I think that's what's driven a lot of my, my refusal to get involved in conflict. Not that anyone wants to get involved with conflict, but if there's something that I feel strong enough about, I still, to an extent, don't feel that I have the wherewithal to back it up. I can tend to back down when confronted. But I guess on the flip side, I've become a much better communicator, like in interpersonal relationships, especially like my relationship with Faye. Like, we kind of joke that we go out to have dinner and we'd say, "How was your day? How was your day?" Eat and then leave. And there was really not much to fluff out the time as far as conversation is concerned. And now I am far better at it than I used to, because um, just because I'm aware that it was something that I used to do, and what effect that had on Faye. Feeling like it was all one sided conversation. Like, she'd be doing all the talking, and I'd be going, "What do you think of that? Oh yeah, yeah, good." And that's not great that's not great communication for anyone's relationship. So as far as communication, I got a lot better, and having the confidence to speak up about things. Like that conversation with my mother, probably wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. Even in my 40s, I still felt like a little child in the back of my mind. um and that's a thing that I actually wrote in one of my songs, is like, every time I walk through the door of my parents' place, I'm back to my 20s. Um, in my mind, is like I'm still there at times, but that's gotten better over the years. But yeah, just I know myself. I have grown as an individual. I'm not as easily to stay out of conversations, and I'll try to put my 2 cents in. Have a bit of a go. Like Faye's always said to me that I don't say much, but when I do, people listen. And even in like a leadership role, people actually respect when I do talk up, because it's not something that I readily do on a normal basis, or didn't. And when I'll take lead on things, because I've always said I'm not a leader. I'm happy to let someone else lead, and I'll do whatever's needed in the background and support them. But in a leadership role, apparently I'm actually pretty good at it. Um, so, you know, especially in a band setting, I know what I'm talking about. So if I'm if I'm telling the guys in a rehearsal, I want to hear this, you need to do this, that's natural. But in a, I don't know, like a group setting where just on a personal outing or whatever, I'll I'm happy to let someone else take the lead and, well, hey, let's go here. And usually it'll take me half an hour to figure out what I'm trying to eat. But yeah, um, but yeah,
That's all of us.
like Faye used to say that, you know, we go, what do you want for dinner? We'll have KFC. Now, KFC's menu for all intents and purposes hasn't changed in the last 20 years, but I still can't make up my mind until I get there.
And 9 times out of 10, you just get the same thing anyway, right?
Yeah, the tenders box upsize. Anyway, but I'm thinking, 3-piece feet might be nice. Do I really feel like I'd put down maybe a burger? No, maybe not a burger. Maybe 3-piece feet or the tenders. That'll be fine. But yeah, no, I definitely feel like a bit more, I guess, empowered these days mentally to not be just a wallflower like I've done in the past. Don't know.
Outside of the music setting, did I see? Are you a paramedic or work for the ambulance service?
I work for Ambulance Victoria, but I work in the fleet section, which is basically involved in keeping all the vehicles on the road and all the ambos kitted out with all the gear they need. So when
Not an
something,
easy job in Victoria these days.
no, but yeah, we do what we can to try and help, and sometimes it's a thankless task, but most of the time, yeah, when you do run across a paramedic, they're a good bunch.
And how does that imposter syndrome link into that setting?
When a paramedic asks me a question that anytime they approach, I'm like, okay, what's this kind of question? Is it something I'm going to be able to answer, or is it something that's far too technical for me in my position to know? Like, there's things that I know about some of the equipment that they use that they don't necessarily know. Like, you find it all the time. They're the smartest people as far as their job is concerned, but some of the technical things, or just as far as, let's say, street knowledge, not so much. And so, if in troubleshooting, like their oxygen bag that they use, that I can do. But then if someone asks me, how many of these should there be in a kit, it's something I should know, but I don't know. And then all of a sudden I'm going, oh god, if I mess this up, someone's life's in danger. I'll be right back. Yeah, I guess it sort of rears its head as, I probably should know more than I do know on the job. But again, I've only been working 3 years at this job, so I've picked up a lot, but there's probably a lot more I can pick up. Like, the amount of acronyms they use is just hard to
it's
keep
not
up with.
ideal.
No, like, and some of them sort of cross. There's a couple of acronyms that sound the same or have the same letters in them, but mean one thing to this department and one thing to this department. It's like trying to figure out which one's which. But yeah, it's all about being found out for not having knowledge that I should have.
Mm.
And that's sort of where that stems from at work.
You know what's really interesting for me
Mm-hmm.
since becoming a manager in a corporate setting is the fact that you don't have to have all the answers, and your circumstances are actually great for this. Like, all these organizations, they have, there's other people that can always help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about leaning on the people around you to get answers, and oftentimes when you do lean on someone else to get the answers, it actually elevates their status as well, makes them feel good about what they're doing, and puts their expertise to good use. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting going through that journey, because when I initially leapt into that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's no different even being a ground level employee in any place as well. It's like you just feel like you have to have the answer straight away. And you talk about acronyms, it's one of my absolute fucking pet hates in any job, right? And I've picked up on myself actually doing it a couple of times. Like, I'll have a new staff member come in and you'll be talking and you'll go through all these acronyms and you'll be like, you'll see their face. I've gotten really good at reading faces. Like, if I see someone start to like go blank or lose interest or whatever it may be, I know I'm like, okay, I've lost them at this point. I was halfway through like a spiel. This is only a couple of weeks ago, and I literally went from talking through an acronym to going, oh, actually, I should actually probably stop talking to you in acronyms because this is just a complete waste of time. You have no idea what I'm talking about. But it was a full circle moment for me because I remember in a job that I started in COVID or just before COVID, I was in a training session and this trainer was talking the whole thing in acronyms, and I stopped her halfway through. I said, I don't mean to be an asshole, but like we're all here because we actually don't know what we're talking about or what we're doing or what we're looking at. So you need to stop talking in acronyms and actually use the terminology correctly so that we actually understand what they mean, or provide us with an acronym sheet. Sorry
Yeah.
to go off tangent, but
No, no,
I
no.
just wanted to touch on that. It's really
No,
fascinating.
it is. And like the paramedics, they just rattle them off and like, sorry, can you just go back, the last five acronyms you said?
So how do you push? And last question on the imposter syndrome piece, but what sort of helps you push through it and still put yourself out there when you're in those uncomfortable situations?
I don't know, maybe some degree of blind arrogance. I don't know. I just, yeah, it's like when I'm in, like I've just started a new band, and I've got some very good people on board, and a couple that are have been around the Melbourne music scene for like years, beyond me, and I'm pitching this idea to them, and they're saying how great an idea it is, and we're standing in rehearsals, and we're going through these tunes, and I'm going, I'm gonna this is not. I'm gonna mess up here. So they're gonna find out I'm not as good as I've purported to be. But I'm putting myself there anyway because I don't know. As my father-in-law has drilled into myself and Faye, the answer is no already if you don't ask the question, and it kind of applies as well. You don't know what the situation is going to be unless you put yourself in that situation. So I guess it's that drive to find out what that answer will be, and putting that aside, and hopefully it not manifesting in having a meltdown and going, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. You guys are just carrying this whole thing, and I'm just standing here singing, and I'm not even doing that right, although I am. But I guess when it comes to it, it's doubt. It's a little self doubt. I guess it's for better or worse. I think in my life, my creative life, it's served me well because I, like a lot of people I know, we don't big note ourselves about what it is that we do or how we do it. Like I'm an okay drummer. I've got people who can play rings around me. I mean, half the 5-year-olds on the internet can play better than I do, but I'm able to do enough to hold down a groove and be useful to a band. I never think I'm better than anybody. That goes with singing. That goes with definitely playing guitar and bass. I only noodle, and it comes out sounding nice. So that's great. So it's one of the mantras that I sort of have is I listened to an interview with Phil Collins, and it struck a chord with me. He said, I said I'm not necessarily brilliant at anything, but I just make a nice noise. And it was sort of broke it down to saying, it sounds good to me. I like it. I hope other people like it. And without being, arrogant about the fact that he's such a wicked drummer and songwriter and guitarist and pianist. There we go on. So it's in that respect, it's served me as a grounding sort of influence. That I just like playing in bands with people who have the same outlook. I'm very blessed at the moment to be surrounded with a bunch of people who all suffer imposter syndrome in some way, but are fucking awesome at what they do. So it can be seen as a negative, but I also see it as a positive as far as my own makeup, I guess.
No, I think it's something a lot of creators really battle with because being a songwriter or a musician is such a vulnerable thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're putting a lot of yourself into those endeavors and trying to connect with people that might resonate with who you are in your story, and it's such a vulnerable thing. And I think that imposter syndrome is a natural sort of piece that comes along with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that respect. So, and yeah, for what it's worth, like from drummer to drummer, you're fucking great. So stop putting yourself down. Fuck those 5-year-olds on the internet. But last one on I guess the fatherhood piece as well, and this isn't about your dad. This is about you, because you've got 2 kids now that have effectively nearly grown up, for want of a better term.
Well, they are technically both adults now.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I know,
I
'cause
still
the
remember
last time
seeing
you
them
saw
at your
them, they were like
house.
this big.
That's exactly right. Oh man, it's unbelievable how fast time goes, particularly when you become a parent. It's mental. But when you first had kids, like, obviously you've been through a lot of these experiences in your childhood. What kind of dad did you want to be?
Just a present dad, to know. I wanted my kids to know that I was, no matter what, I was always there. If they get to teenage years and they don't share, yeah, you have to be patient with that kind of thing. But as far as me, look, I was never exposed to young children as a kid, or as a teen. All my, like, we had distant relationships with most of my family, like my cousins and that. So when they were having kids, we really didn't associate with them, for better or worse. And so my kids were my first exposure to having to change nappies, bath, um, just all those basic things that you do as a parent. I had no idea, so I was green, and they don't come with a manual, so you have to roll with the punches and figure out what's best for them and you. And I think the underlying thing for me was just to be present, just to be there, and just reinforce that when whether they want you there or not, you're always going to be there. And like obviously my kids both grew up very. They weren't brought up any different. Personality determines how they end up. Uh, the old saying is, you've got people who are old souls and people who are new souls. Old souls have been here, walked this plane before. So that was our oldest daughter, Mackenzie, who is just gung ho from as soon as she could walk. She wanted to be a paleontologist at 5. And she would tell us plainly she wanted to be a paleontologist. How the hell she got her head around that word, I don't know. But as soon as she was able to work, she was working, and so she was very, very strong-willed, very, very, very driven. The youngest, not so much. No, but they're both living creative lives. Like Mackenzie's band Everline has been doing really good things. They've just sort of relaunched themselves in the last sort of few months, so they're moving on to bigger and better things. And she's just having a ball with it. Charlie's also followed in the creative footsteps. She's singing in her own band as well. We'll always be here, whether it's to give them the pat on the back or clean up a mess. Yeah, and I think as a very new dad, I don't think I did too badly. I sort of recently spoken to both the girls, and I've kind of said, not so. I'm going to give you a questionnaire. How did I do? But it was just more, there's things that, because my job also takes me on long drives around Victoria, because we also service the regional areas as well. So there are days when I'm, driving long hours and just to distant locations there and back. And, you get to thinking while you're on the road by yourself. And recently I've said to both of them that I've sort of, just sort of sat back and had a bit of a review on how I thought I was, and whether I held true to the the goals that I set for myself, or but not repeating things that I saw in my mind growing up. And like I started to think there were times when maybe I wasn't present enough. I was off, like when they were both younger. I was still doing bands. I was still going off to rehearsals and playing gigs, which unfortunately left one parent at home, which it didn't cause resentment, but it certainly, it presented some challenges. And, in those times when I was really really into the bands. Maybe there was times when I wasn't as present as I purport to be. To which they both said, no, you were there. That was nice to hear. It's just it's the whole parenting done right. Both my kids love his hair metal. They love Kiss. They love Dream Theater. Well, the oldest one does. They like Monty Python. So I did right.
You've done well. No, that's great, man. That's awesome. They've said that as well. Really love. Now, you've been really generous with your time, mate. So I'm going to spend the next sort of 20 minutes max just going through something pretty significant that you've been going through the last couple of years. Now, correct me on the timelines and stuff, because I've read this sort of third party. No one's sort of given me a lot of information. But
yeah.
I believe it was a cruise in 2023 where you had a really significant event happen to you.
It was just a little thing. Yeah, so I was, at the time, I was part of Kiss This, a Kiss tribute. And I was obviously playing drums. I was the Peter Criss character.
Suits you.
I know, right? Even the facial hair doesn't give it away. But yeah, so we were booked to play this cruise. We were to spend 5 days on the cruise going from Queensland to Tasmania. Everything was going swimmingly. Excuse the pun. So we were booked to play 4 shows. One was in the main theatre, which I don't actually have the statistics, but it was a full house that night. It was pretty good. It was probably one of the biggest audience I've ever played to. So it was going to be a good night. And then we were to do 2 more shows, which were on one of the smaller sort of nightclub type venues on the boat. So second night in, we've done the sound check. We've got ready. We're all good. We go on stage, and we absolutely do a blistering version of Detroit Rock City to open up. Then I count off the second song, which is Deuce, and get into the chorus. And of course, I start feeling a little faint. Then I noticed that the snare drum was coming at me at a great rate of knots, and I woke up. I don't know the timeline, but I woke up a little while later, and I was on the ground with a bunch of people around me, appearing very worried. Which was understandable when you think about it. In front, so first one of probably the biggest gig I played in my life. Second song into that set, and I was on the floor. If I had present in mind, I would have been really pissed off. But I knew something was terribly wrong. So once they sort of cleared like any electrical garb away from me, because my in-ear monitors were still in, and I'd probably ripped them apart, and the microphone stand had probably taken out or whatever. So once they sort of cleared the area, they got me onto a wheelchair and then took me down to the ship's hospital. Unfortunately, as soon as they put me onto the bed, I went into cardiac arrest, which, no idea how, why. Spent a week in St. Vincent's in Sydney to come out with absolutely no conclusions whatsoever. They couldn't find anything wrong. I had no history of heart trouble.
There was nothing wrong with the heart whatsoever.
There was nothing wrong with the heart. Like they scanned it. They did all sorts of scans. They couldn't find any scarring. They couldn't find no reason for why it stopped. It just stopped. To which, hearing shit like that is confronting. So basically, I woke up to seeing the ship surgeon performing CPR on me, and once he realised I'd come to, they basically hooked me up to a machine, which it's an external. So like the pads they put on you when you collapse, or if you've seen the AEDs or the defibrillators that they have around, they've got 2 pads, one that sits here and one that sits on the side. And they had a sort of similar thing, but it was sitting on the middle of my chest. And every time my pulse rate dropped, it shocked me. And I clearly remember all of those shocks. They weren't pleasant. And so the band leader, Lindsay, was straight on the phone to Faye and updating her on what was happening, because obviously Faye was at home. She wasn't with me on the cruise. So that was another level of mindfuckery they had to get around. And basically they contacted us, said, and they used the words, he's stable, we're keeping him alive. And so she was straight on the website, got the first flight out of Melbourne into Sydney the next morning, organised herself, and that would have been a terrible night's sleep. I could joke about it now, but yeah.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. So they put the throttle down. They got us into Sydney 3 hours earlier, which I'm a bit bummed about. They could have at least airlifted me out. That would have been cool. But anyway,
I want my helicopter ride. God damn it.
Hey, I work for AV. Why not? But anyway, so they got us into Sydney 3 hours earlier, straight off the boat, straight into an ambulance, and straight into St Vincent's, where I spent a week and a half. They ran a battery of tests, all of which were inconclusive. And then 7 days later, on the 7 days to the date of the first arrest, I was going in for what they call a PET scan, which is where they pump you through full of the nuclear dye, and then they light you up from the inside to see what's going on. They laid me down on the MRI machine. I went to cardiac arrest again. So that was 2 in 1 week. I don't recommend it. And early on in the week, they kind of said, look, we think that either way, dependent whatever the results prove, he'll be walking out with a pacemaker at the very least. And then after that happened, they rang Faye in the hospital and said, we're not. Well, he didn't use the words, but basically, we're not fucking around anymore. They put me straight into surgery, and I've got a pacemaker / defibrillator in the event that anything happens from here on in. So, knock on wood, nothing's happened. We're almost probably 2.5 years down the track now, and everything's been going swimmingly. But yeah, that was some pretty dark shit. Like when they put the device in, they said basically you'll just go back to normal life. Okay, so I've just
You're like, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. So so firstly you have to deal with the fact that your heart just decided to stop essentially, and why it felt the need to do this. No, they couldn't tell me, and it's not going to tell me. And 2, recovery is just basically my main recovery was the scar and making sure that the device sat properly, because essentially what it does, they sit the device in your chest and they run 2 wires down one of the arteries, and they connect it up to the node in the heart. It's just pretty cool shit. I just wish it to have somebody else. But so the pacemaker is working 100% of the time, which early on I thought, okay, so the pacemaker's there just in case something happens. And then I get told in my second visit, oh, no. This pacemaker is working 100% of the time. So it is pacing you. So we can't afford to let your heart not do it by itself. Okay. And so the defib is, if the pacemaker can't fix it, the defib kicks in. If that's the case, then it'll do it while I'm asleep. It won't kick in unless I'm unconscious, which I'm kind of cool about, because I've felt I've felt similar to what it does. So I don't want to feel that again. But as I've told a couple of people, my recovery was probably 90% mental. Getting around why me? Why did my body feel the need to do that? Like I had no like. It's a pretty significant thing that happens. Your heart stops, which means good night, see you later. But and just for the record, if it had happened at home, I had a 10% chance of actually making it. So someone was looking out for me, to be honest. But
is that because of the environment you were in? You had medical professionals there like that?
Right there, yeah. So they were on. So it just proves that recovery from cardiac arrest requires immediate intervention from an outside source. Heart attack, you get warnings. You have pain down your arm, sore jaw. This was just good night. And you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, man.
That's
I
good.
was just going to backtrack slightly. So,
sure.
So your second song into the set, and fair to say it was an absolute showstopper.
It was going to be a crack.
Sorry, couldn't help it. But you faint. So, but that episode there wasn't actually a cardiac arrest, but it was like a warning shot, so to speak, and the cardiac arrest came later.
A symptom of, yeah. So the arrest, if I was to guess the timeline, it was half an hour to 45 minutes after the collapse. So, yeah, it was pretty extreme. But again, a lot of the problem was that I didn't have any pain. There was no pain associated with what I had. Like as I said, with a heart attack, you get warnings, you get pain down your arm, you get chest pains, breathing starts to suffer, pain in your jaw, all these warning signs. This was just instant, almost. And the second one was just the same. It was, like a bolt from the blue. It was just done. And so, as I said, the recovery was, it was about getting comfortable with the device in the chest, to which the surgery wasn't painful. And even after I was saying to Faye the other day, I don't remember there being any discomfort or pain from that area after it was installed, which is probably a good thing for the surgeon. His work is second to none. But the mental thing of, okay, well, this is something that's pretty significant that's happened. Why don't I feel pain? Why don't I have like a reference of something? Like, I was highly alert for at least 3 months after going, I felt that, or there's a little pain over here. This is going to happen again, or this happened over here. Every little thing in my chest area that sounded, that felt to me like it was going to be significant, I was hyper vigilant of, and going, okay, is it about to happen again? But of course, I have nothing to gauge it for, because there was no pain leading up to it. There's no pain afterwards. So again, it's a significant event, but you're okay. And like it just said, basically just get back to normal life. And it was, what is normal life after what potentially could have ended it?
With in terms of a personal experience, we went through something significant with an immediate family member a couple of years back.
Yep.
Also, a significant heart issue that occurred.
Mhm.
And what I found once she was able to leave the hospital, the aftercare in terms of like looking after what's in your mind, looking
Mhm.
after what's going on there. There was a little bit of an offer for, I think there was a bit of group therapy for a limited number of sessions, but
Okay.
I'd love to hear from you, like what your experience was with that, because obviously you're saying your biggest battle was the mental side, right? And
Mhm.
fair enough, you're confronted with your own mortality all of
Yeah.
a sudden, right? And
Yeah.
you've got no answer as to why. What did that look like for you? Was there any sort of support for you in that respect?
Well, I guess the timeline of that was, well, I saw an occupational therapist in hospital, and also a psych as well. So it was funny. The occupational therapist came in and said, "Okay, do this, bend this way, take a deep breath." And she's like, "What am I doing here? You've got no pain, so there's nothing for me to do." And I'm like,
Sweet as, bro.
I know, right? And so that in itself was another, like, yeah, okay, tell me what's going on. But the psych came in sort of, and had a bit of a chat, and we're talking about my experience, and how I was feeling at that stage, and how I saw, I guess, things at the end, going forward. I'm just saying, well, the doctors are telling me, once the surgery's done, you'll be peachy, and just go on with life. And it's a bit of a struggle, because there's a significant life event has happened, and they're just saying, fly, be free. But Faye and I had already talked about it. As soon as we got home, I was going to contact one of the clinics down here and just talk through the whole event with them. That was all. Getting back to Melbourne, that was high on the priority list. So I'd identified, both myself and Faye had identified, that that was something I was definitely going to do when I got back home, because there was, clearly there was a lot to unpack. So she said, "Look, I would highly recommend doing that." And we said, "Well, you're a little bit late. We've already discussed this." And she's like, "Great, you've got this thing in hand, okay." And then when I got back, I think I did 6 sessions with a counsellor, and again, that helped. It really, really did help, but it wasn't pushed by any treating physicians down here. That was something that I did as a self-motivation thing. I knew that I would need to talk to somebody. There's only so many times I can tell Faye, what it is that I felt, or how I was feeling, or what happened, while still be cognizant that she, as my major support, had her own journey, and had her own feelings, and had her own shit to deal with about my mortality. And so, although, yeah, again, it was one of these things to come back to, being able to talk more about things and be expressive about emotions and that sort of thing. I was very aware of doing that with her, but also had to be aware of the fact that she was going through her side of things
Mm.
as my major means of support and trying to, like, she did say, don't not tell me anything. But how much do I tell her until it's going to affect her mental health as well? And, every now and then, even 2.5 years down the track, something will crop up and I had this situation today where I was taken right back to that point in time, and we sort of have a bit of a talk about it and try and not so much analyze it, but have a bit of a think about why that's come up. But it's something that I'm pretty sure I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life. Because, however, I have said to a number of people that basically the only reminder that I have is looking in the mirror each day and seeing the scar and the lump there. But yeah, as far as my mental journey with that, it's as I said, I highlighted that very very early in the piece, and it was something that I absolutely followed through when I got back to Melbourne. I wasn't going to let it slide, not only for myself, but for Faye and my family, you know. And something significant that came out of the whole scenario was I didn't know how much I meant to people. You go through life, you connect with people every now and then, bring them up and say, "Hey, how you going?" And you think, one day I really need to catch up with that person. I mean, we all do it, and it never happens. But the amount of people that reached out to me and expressed, love, reverence was overwhelming. I was floored, and it's something that I sort of still hold on to. That everyone who I've met in my life is are dear to me. They are good friends, and they are still good friends for a reason. And this episode opened my eyes to that. So I sort of try to be more cognizant, even though I'm Facebook stalking most of my friends. I still try to make the effort to reach out to people and say, "Hey, how you doing? Hope everything's well." I might not be successful at it all the time, but it's certainly something that I need to not give back, but just knowing that how much I'm into those people, I need to still maintain a link to them because again, they mean that much to me as well, present company included. So it it was a situation that had a lot of pluses with a couple of really major negatives. But for the most part, we're never going to say I'm over it because I'm never going to be over it. And again, it does come up in quiet moments where something will just trigger me. Like I was going through a period about last month, I think it was, when at work of all places, people started mentioning cardiac arrest, and I'm like, just that term was like, you know, take a sharp intake of breath. But now I'm okay. So it's feelings and memories that just sort of come in waves, and they will come out of the blue, and they will knock that they have knocked me on my ass a couple of times.
Mm.
And it's funny, one thing I said I'd never do, but then I ended up getting that on the first anniversary. So obviously it's a heartbeat with the drums in the middle. So another sign that I will never forget.
Yeah.
Um, my
Have
my
you been able to perform again?
yeah. That in itself was interesting. One little anecdote: the head surgeon that was looking after me in hospital was a Kiss fan, and when I got the surgery, he's come to me. He's done the post op check, and he's getting right. Well, I guess we'll never play "Shock Me" in the tribute anymore, will we?
What a dick.
I thought I took that with the appreciation of a fellow fan. That was good. It was a good one. But yeah, so I think August of 2023, Kiss were playing in Geelong, and I approached him and said, "Look, I would like to come back and maybe do a couple of songs during the set if you guys are open to it." Uh, so we got, or at the time they had Bryce from Sisters Doll filling in for me,
Oh, awesome.
and so he was open to the idea. So what ended up happening was, excuse me, both iterations of Kiss makeup turned up on the night. So we had Peter Criss and Eric Carr. So obviously I was Eric Carr, he was Peter Criss. So I jumped up for 3 songs and it felt really good. Stupidly, I said, yeah, let's do Creatures of the Night, which is a double kick song. So yeah, I just jumped in both feet, so to speak, and yeah, wore myself after the first song after not playing for like 6 months. But so that went over well, and that was sort of a nice partial return. But then I was going to do it again about a month later, and I did the sound check, and I got off stage, and I'm like, I can't do this. I just physically can't do this. And luckily enough, Kiss has a large back catalogue, so the 3 songs I was going to do could automatically be replaced by the guy who was doing the Peter Criss role at the time. And that basically saw me to the end of my my tenure with Kiss This. I just thought I can't have this unpredictability as it is at the moment affect me, stepping back into that role. I bowed out gracefully. Almost made 10 years. I wasn't going to get a bonus for the 10 years, but that's okay. But I did get back to playing with the other band I was in, called MDR, or Million Dollar Riff, and I got settled into that, and I was really happy to keep going with that one until I wasn't. There was a change of guard as far as our guitarists were concerned, and I wasn't enamored with the guy who they found to replace him. And but basically, one final gig, and I said, yeah, look, no, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I technically haven't played live since August last year. And recently, I've missed it. But up until that point, it's like, it'd be nice, but you know what? I'm just enjoying this downtime, which I'd never given myself previously. I've always, as I said, from the time my kids were small, I was just from band to band to band to band. There might have been small breaks in between a couple of them, but there was, this is the most significant gap I've given myself, and I think it's been good. Although the next band that I'm doing is, I'm standing out front singing, so yeah, it's not getting back to my traditional area of the bandstand. But does anyone even say bandstand anymore? Stage. So my traditional area of the stage, but I'm looking forward to the results of it.
So taking a step back from music is obviously a pretty significant decision. Is there any other sort of big calls that you made following all this, battle with your health, or has it at least made you look quite differently at life itself now?
Oh yeah, I think that the overarching thing was just to be, that present, being more present, just being aware of things. Like I always used to hear people say, don't sweat the small stuff. I think I still do to some extent, but I'm more attuned to take a moment than just keep forging through. Like if something's really upset me, I'll internally fight it, but then I realize that no, just need to take a step back and have a look at it again, chill out, and just be more aware of yourself and what situations you're in and the people you're around. Yeah, just being more, I guess, more self-aware. Like, if I get into like a physical situation, like we just did our front lawn and landscaping ourselves. Long story. The people we bought the land from were supposed to do it, but we did it ourselves anyway. So that involved a sort of fair amount of physical labor, which I was dreading it. And I got through it. I didn't collapse. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel the things I thought I was going to feel. I pushed through. I dug some pretty gnarly clay soil, which was probably a precursor to what we're planning in the backyard, which is going to be a lot more. But it was good to do it. It was good to know that I could do it, get through it, and look, I was probably a little bit slower than I was hoping it would go. But I think that the main takeaway for me for that scenario was that I got through it. I got through it without too much fuss. I didn't have to worry about collapsing. Yeah, just having the presence of mind to be present and not be afraid to do things that I used to do regularly. Because I mean, I think we redeveloped our backyard in our old house like 7 times. So yeah, and had no problems there. But yeah, this was a significant amount of work for ever since the incident. So
Mm.
it was sort of dipping the toe back into that sort of thing because the work I do at the moment is not physical, whereas
Mm.
my last job working for a removalist was. So yeah, hadn't done a lot of physical labour in the probably certainly in the last 4 or 5 years.
Good on you, mate. That's really cool. And
Thank you.
yeah, you're looking well, so it must be all going okay.
Yeah, it is feeling well. Everything's good. We're in a new place. As I said, we might be grappling with the what empty nester looks like. But as we've said to people, as soon as we put the first box in this house, it was home. So we're relaxed. There's no timetables that we're having to abide by. We just do our own do our own thing. We'll go get takeout if we don't feel like cooking for two of us rather than four of us. And it's I guess it's just another phase of our life together that we're I think we're settling into,
Love it, mate.
and healthily.
Well, you've well, you've been very generous with your time, kind sir. I've got one more question for you, which is that given your experience with everything we've talked about today,
Mhm.
if someone what this podcast is about helping others and helping them to not feel as alone as what they probably are. And so if someone is out there, holding on to their own pain, stuck in their old stories, or have gone through, some significant life events,
Mhm.
what would you want to say to them at this point?
See, it's really hard to, I guess, put myself in another shoes with this kind of stuff. For me, just being brave to talk about it, whether it's a family member, a good friend, or seeking counselling. It's I found the value of just being able to talk to someone about what you're feeling is it it's invaluable. Mm. And it's not easy. It is so not easy. Um, but I'm lucky. I feel like I hit the jackpot when I met Faye. She's been my rock. And I think I've meant the same to her. She's been a mentor in some respects as well. I think she might have told you that. But just we both got together at a time where we were both looking to get away from difficult situations from home. We each found a kindred spirit, and obviously it wasn't until later in life that I actually realized that talking was a good thing. But she, being my significant other for the last 35 years, I couldn't have done this without her. And so not everyone is as lucky to find that someone who can help you through this stuff and support you, and vice versa. Because Faye's had her own journey with mental health, and I've in the early stages of her mental health journey, I think I was a bit more pedestrian than I am now. Just going, it's going to be all right. Not the words that she needed to hear, but just having someone who can listen and understand, not necessarily, as we said earlier, provide the answers and, fix the problem, but someone who can just say, I'm here, just let me know what it is you're feeling. I won't, someone who doesn't judge, someone who doesn't offer a fix or whatever, just talk. It seems so simple to say, or it is so simple to say. It's harder to put in practice, and I'm sure, both you and I know that because of what you've been through as well. So, it's not an easy thing to do, but it is so vital.
Amen. Hey, thanks, mate. I'm really proud of you and
Thank
really
you, dude.
glad that you're still here. Obviously, it definitely sounds like two cases of right place, right time.
Oh, for sure. Couldn't have picked it better.
Yeah, I reckon. But yeah, thanks for being so open today too. It's it's been great just
Yeah.
to see another side of you, and I think people will get a lot of value out of this. That's for sure. So thank you again, mate. I really
No
appreciate
worries.
it.
I appreciate you, and thank you for providing the platform for others like myself to just sit out and have a heart-to-heart chat on this stuff. It's again, it's not easy. I can't believe I got nervous, but but it's if it sort of helps one person through the shit they're going through, you know, you've done your job right. So again, thank you, man. Applaud you.
Thanks, mate. Paul Rourke, episode 4. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my podcast, Drop Balls and Big Calls. I'm Jace. You can give us a follow anywhere you listen to your podcasts so you don't miss an episode in the future. We've got some great guests coming up, and I would hate for you to miss it. But above all else, just appreciate you being here. If what you're listening to resonates with you and you think it'll benefit someone else, we are here to help people feel seen. So please feel free to share it around your friends. Thanks again for listening.